The geothermal vent hissed like a disgruntled dragon, spewing plumes of scalding steam that momentarily obscured the oppressive white expanse of Keelam. Owen, bundled in layers of thermally regulated fabric, shivered regardless. The warmth reached only so far, a fragile bubble against the planet's icy breath. He rubbed his gloved hands together, his gaze fixed on the fractured ice where the mining platform had once stood. Just hours ago, it had been a hub of activity, men and women drilling into Keelam's frozen heart, hoping to extract the resources their struggling colony desperately needed. Now, it was a mangled mess of metal and ice, a testament to the power of the icequake that had ripped through the glacier. His datapad beeped, displaying a grim message from the Settlement Council: rations reduced, mining operations suspended indefinitely. The colony was on the brink. He sighed, his breath frosting in the frigid air. He'd come to Keelam with a different purpose: to study, to understand. Xenobotany, his field of expertise, wasn't supposed to be about survival, but here, on this frozen wasteland, it was all that mattered. He needed to find a way to coexist with this alien world, not conquer it. Suddenly, a flicker of iridescent light caught his eye. Deep within the fractured ice, a kaleidoscope of colors pulsed, like a heartbeat in the frozen depths. It was unlike anything he'd ever seen, a hint of life in a world presumed barren. The same shimmer, he remembered, had preceded the quake. Could there be a connection? He knew the risk: venturing into the unstable glacier after a quake was borderline suicidal, but the scientist in him, that relentless thirst for discovery, couldn't be ignored. He adjusted the thermal imaging on his visor and began his descent into the glacial crevasse. As he climbed down, the bioluminescent patterns grew more complex, a silent language whispered from the ice. He reached a vast cavern, its walls shimmering with an otherworldly light. And there, amidst the crystalline structures, she stood. A being of pure light and ice, her form shifting and refracting the ambient glow. Ayla. He had only seen glimpses of the KRYLL before, fleeting images captured by drones. Seeing one up close, witnessing the subtle shifts in her luminescence, the way her colors pulsed with what he could only describe as emotion, it was mesmerizing. He reached out a gloved hand, hesitantly, unsure if his touch would be welcome. Or even safe. Ayla didn't recoil. Instead, her colors intensified, a rapid cascade of blues and greens, then a soft, pulsing violet. Fear, followed by a curiosity? He lowered his hand, a sense of loss washing over him. This was his mission, his purpose, to bridge the gap between humanity and the unknown. He had to understand her, understand them. Later, back at the research outpost, Owen pored over the data he'd collected. His heart ached. He'd glimpsed something beautiful, something precious, in Ayla's eyes. Yes, he was certain those crystalline structures were eyes, and yet, he was so far from understanding her. He thought of his late wife, lost in the Earth's own ecological collapse. The grief, still raw after all these years, twisted inside him. Ayla, in a strange way, represented a new beginning, a chance to build a better future, a future where humanity didn't repeat its mistakes. If only he could find a way. The comm crackled. It was a priority message from the Council. Another icequake, this one larger than the last. The Frostworm. A name whispered in hushed tones, a legend among the KRYLL. Ayla's luminescence, he recalled, had shifted to a deep, foreboding red just before the first quake. Was she trying to warn them? Could she communicate with the Frostworm? He knew what he had to do. He had to find Ayla again, had to understand her warnings, had to find a way to prevent a catastrophe. The fate of the colony, and perhaps his own heart, depended on it. The faint, ethereal glow beckoned Owen deeper into the glacier. The ice creaked and groaned around him, a constant reminder of the instability of this frozen world. He replayed Ayla's luminescent patterns in his mind, trying to decipher their meaning. His modified datapad, designed to interpret bioluminescent communication, registered a series of complex pulses, but the translation software was still rudimentary, spitting out fragmented phrases: danger, Frostworm. Unease, he needed to see Ayla again, to gather more data, to understand. He found her in the same ice cavern, her crystalline form radiating a soft, pulsing blue. As he approached, her light shifted to a vibrant green, interspersed with flickers of violet. Curiosity, mixed with apprehension? He remembered her reaction to his touch, the sudden surge of color. This time, he kept his distance, observing her, letting her acclimate to his presence. He spoke to her, his voice echoing in the cavern, explaining his purpose, his desire to learn, to understand. He knew she couldn't comprehend his words, but he hoped the tone, the intent, might reach her. Her light responded, a slow, deliberate dance of blues and greens. He activated the datapad, recording the patterns, feeding the data into the translation software. Balance, disturbed. Humans, threat, the words, though fragmented, confirmed his fears. The KRYLL perceived human activity as a disruption, a threat to the delicate balance of their icy world. And the frostworm, their guardian, was growing restless. He felt a pang of guilt. He represented the very threat she spoke of, the humans who were encroaching on her world. But he also felt a flicker of hope. If she was communicating with him, if she was trying to warn him, then perhaps there was a chance for understanding, a chance to avoid a devastating conflict. "I don't want to be a threat," he said, his voice soft. "I want to learn. I want to help." He held up a sample of a bioluminescent algae he'd collected, a species unique to Keelam. "This is beautiful. Your world is beautiful. I want to protect it, too." Ayla's colors pulsed, a slow, rhythmic wave of violet. Then, she did something that took his breath away. She extended a crystalline appendage, delicately touching the algae sample. It was the first physical contact initiated by her, a gesture of trust, of acceptance. He felt a jolt, not just from the cold of her touch, but from the sheer wonder of the moment. Her touch, strangely warm, sent a shiver down his spine. Over the next few weeks, Owen's relationship with Ayla deepened. He spent hours in the ice cavern, studying her, learning her language, sharing stories of his world, of Earth's lost beauty, of his late wife. Ayla's luminescence reflected his emotions, a kaleidoscope of colors that mirrored his own internal struggles. She listened, she observed, she learned. She revealed the KRYLL's deep connection to Keelam, their symbiotic relationship with the planet's icy heart, the frostworm's role as protector. He learned of her own aspirations, her desire to not just protect her people, but to prove that KRYLL and humans could be equals, allies. One day, she shared a vision, a terrifying premonition of the frostworm attacking the human settlement. Her colors pulsed a frantic red, a desperate plea for him to act. He knew he had to warn the council, even though they wouldn't listen, even though they might see his connection with Ayla as a betrayal. He raced back to the settlement, bursting into the council chamber. "The frostworm is coming. We have to evacuate. We have to stop the mining operations." His words were met with derision, with accusations of fearmongering, of being swayed by alien propaganda. They were blinded by their desperation, by their hunger for the resources beneath the ice. They refused to listen. That night, as the first tremors shook the settlement, he knew he had a choice to make. He could stay, try to help his people, or he could return to Ayla, to the one being who understood the true danger. He thought of Earth, of the chance to maybe, someday, return to a revitalized world. He thought of Ayla, of her trust, of the fragile bridge of understanding they had built. He made his choice. He turned and ran back towards the glacier, towards the woman who had become his hope, his new beginning. He was a xenobotanist, not a soldier. His weapon was understanding, not force. And his heart, despite the vast chasm of interstellar space and biological difference, belonged to Ayla. The ice cavern pulsed with Ayla's light, a soft symphony of blues and greens that eased the gnawing anxiety in Owen's chest. He sat cross-legged on the cavern floor, his modified datapad displaying the complex interplay of light patterns he was painstakingly deciphering. "Family, protect, balance," the translator stammered, each word a hard-won victory. He was learning her language, not just the words, but the nuances, the subtle shifts in hue that conveyed emotion. He glanced up at Ayla, her crystalline form shimmering like a captured aurora. He'd learned that the violet pulsing through her colors represented a complex emotion, a mix of apprehension and longing. He still wasn't sure. Their connection was a fragile bridge spanning a chasm of biological and cultural differences. He thought of his late wife, Lena, her laughter echoing in the empty chambers of his memory. Lena, lost to the Earth's dying breath, a casualty of humanity's short-sightedness. Ayla, in a strange way, represented a new beginning, a chance to build a different future. But could he reconcile his duty to his people with his burgeoning feelings for this alien being? Ayla's colors flickered to a concerned amber as if sensing his turmoil. He knew she carried her own burden. She'd confessed, through a hesitant dance of blues and golds, her fear of betraying her people by trusting him, a human. The KRYLL, it seemed, were not a monolithic entity. There were factions, those who saw humans as a threat, and those, like Ayla, who believed in the possibility of coexistence. Her goal wasn't just survival, but alliance, a partnership between species. He held up the translator, displaying a simple message, "I understand." A wave of relief washed over him as Ayla's light blossomed into a vibrant emerald. He reached out, hesitantly, his gloved hand hovering inches from her crystalline surface. Would his touch harm her? Would she recoil? Instead, Ayla extended a delicate, crystalline appendage, meeting his hand. The contact wasn't cold, as he'd expected, but surprisingly warm, sending a strange shiver down his spine. He felt a connection, a flow of energy, not electrical like the KRYLL's usual communication, but something different. Something intimate. Days turned into weeks, the cavern becoming a sanctuary amidst the growing storm brewing between the human settlement and the KRYLL. He learned about Ayla's world, her family, her hopes for a future where KRYLL and humans could share Keelam's bounty. He shared stories of Earth, of its vibrant oceans and lush forests, now faded memories. Their understanding deepened, but their differences remained. One evening, he attempted to explain the human concept of romantic love, a concept Ayla found both fascinating and bewildering. Her colors pulsed in confusion. The KRYLL, he learned, had a different understanding of intimacy, a connection based on shared energy, on a merging of consciousness he could barely comprehend. Patience, he realized, was key. Then, the crisis hit. The Human Council, desperate for resources, authorized a large-scale mining operation near a KRYLL nesting ground. Ayla's light fled a frantic red. Danger. Frostworm, attack, the translator sputtered. She knew the frostworm, the guardian of Keelam's ecosystem, would see this as an act of aggression. I'll stop them, Owen promised, a surge of adrenaline coursing through his veins. He knew the council wouldn't listen, not to him. But Ayla trusted him, and that trust fueled his resolve. He had a plan, a desperate gamble. He would use his connection with Ayla, their shared understanding, to broker a truce. He raced back to the settlement, his heart pounding. He burst into the council chambers, pleading with them to halt the operation, explaining the KRYLL's perspective, the frostworm's protective role. They scoffed, dismissing him as delusional, obsessed with his alien pet. Desperate, he played his last card. He revealed his communication with Ayla, offering to mediate. They reluctantly agreed, seeing it as their only chance. But during the negotiations, disaster struck. A rogue faction of KRYLL, mistrustful of the humans, launched a preemptive attack. Chaos erupted. The settlement's defenses were weak. Owen, caught in the crossfire, saw Ayla shielding a group of human children with her crystalline body, deflecting the KRYLL's energy blasts. She was risking her life for his people, a testament to her belief in him, in the possibility of peace. He knew what he had to do. He activated the emergency beacon, summoning help from a nearby human outpost, a signal that would forfeit any chance of returning to a revitalized Earth. He had made his choice. Keelam was his home now, Ayla his family. He wouldn't abandon them. The reinforcements arrived, pushing back the rogue KRYLL. The frostworm, alerted by the chaos, descended from the glacier, its colossal form casting a shadow over the settlement. But Ayla intervened, communicating with the frostworm, explaining Owen's efforts, his commitment to peace. The Frostworm, sensing Ayla's trust in him, withdrew, its anger subsiding. The crisis was averted, but the aftermath was bittersweet. The council, while grateful for his intervention, viewed his relationship with Ayla with suspicion. The KRYLL, too, were divided, some hailing Ayla as a hero, others condemning her for consorting with a human. Owen stood beside Ayla, their hands intertwined, a small island of calm in a sea of uncertainty. Their love, a fragile seedling in the frozen wasteland, was both a symbol of hope and a source of contention. The future was uncertain, the path ahead fraught with challenges, but they had each other. And in that shared connection, they found the strength to face whatever lay ahead. Their love story was just beginning, a whisper of hope in the icy vastness of Keelam. The Frostworm's shadow hung heavy over the human settlement, a palpable tension in the air that even the recycled geothermal heat couldn't dispel. Fear twisted into anger, fueling calls for retaliation against the KRYLL. Owen, his pleas for diplomacy dismissed, felt a wave of despair wash over him. He'd shown the council Ayla's warnings, translated her pleas for understanding, but they were too consumed by fear, by the dwindling resources, to listen. He thought of Ayla, her vibrant colors now muted with worry, and his heart ached. He had to find her, to warn her of the impending human assault. The ice cavern felt colder than usual, the air thick with a strange, static energy. Ayla's crystalline form pulsed a nervous amber. Humans, angry, attack, the translator stammered, her fear echoing in the fragmented words. Owen relayed the council's plans, the desperation driving their reckless decision. Ayla's light dimmed, a flicker of betrayal in the muted blues. "You lied," he flinched, the accusation stinging more than any physical blow. "No," he pleaded, "I tried." They wouldn't listen. He showed her the plans, the schematics of the weapons they intended to use against the KRYLL. He laid bare his people's folly, their short-sightedness, hoping she would understand. Ayla remained motionless for what felt like an eternity, her light a dull, pulsing grey. Then, she extended a crystalline appendage, touching his hand. The warmth of her touch surprised him, a stark contrast to the icy fear gripping his heart. "Believe, you," she whispered, the translated words barely audible. He knew the risk she was taking. Trusting a human, going against the will of her own people, could be seen as treason. He shared a memory with her, a flickering image of Lena, his late wife, her laughter echoing across a sun-drenched beach on Earth. "I lost her," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "Because we didn't understand, because we didn't listen." Ayla's light shifted, a soft, pulsing violet, a color he was beginning to understand as empathy. He explained his hope, his dream of building a new life on Keelam, a future where humans and KRYLL could coexist. Ayla, in a move that stunned him, offered to act as a mediator, to convince the Frostworm to give the humans one last chance. It was a perilous undertaking. The Frostworm, angered by the humans' continued aggression, might see her as a traitor. She could be killed. He tried to dissuade her, but her resolve was firm. Her personal goal wasn't just survival, she wanted to prove that humans and KRYLL could be allies, equals. She believed in him, in their shared dream, and that belief pushed him to action. He returned to the settlement, convincing the council to allow Ayla to speak, to present the KRYLL's perspective. He felt a surge of hope, a fragile belief that they could avert disaster. But as Ayla stood before the council, her light shimmering with a plea for understanding, disaster struck. A splinter group of KRYLL, distrustful of the humans and enraged by Ayla's perceived betrayal, launched a surprise attack. The council chamber erupted in chaos, energy blasts scorching the walls. He saw Ayla, her light flickering frantically, shielding a group of human children from the KRYLL's attack. She was risking her life for his people, a testament to her faith in him, in the possibility of peace. He had a choice, stay and defend the council, or protect Ayla. He thought of Earth, of the beacon he carried, the one chance he had to return to a possibly revitalized world. Then he looked at Ayla, at the children huddled beneath her shimmering form. He activated the emergency beacon, knowing he would never see Earth again. He had chosen. Keelam was his home now. Ayla was his family. Reinforcements arrived, pushing back the rogue Kryll. The Frostworm, alerted by the chaos, descended from the glacier, its immense form casting a pall of fear over the settlement. But Ayla, despite the chaos, continued her plea, her light reaching out to the Frostworm, explaining Owen's actions, his commitment to peace. The Frostworm, sensing Ayla's unwavering trust in the human, surprisingly withdrew. The crisis was averted, but the peace was fragile. The Human Council, while grateful for his intervention, viewed his relationship with Ayla with suspicion, a dangerous liaison with the enemy. Some of the Kryll, too, condemned Ayla's actions, seeing her trust in a human as a betrayal. Owen stood beside Ayla, his hand intertwined with her crystalline appendage. Their connection, a beacon of hope amidst the wreckage, was both a testament to their love and a source of contention. Their future was uncertain, a path strewn with obstacles, but they had each other. Their love, a whisper of hope in the frozen wasteland, was a testament to the power of connection, a bridge between worlds, a symbol of a future where understanding, not force, might guide the destinies of two vastly different species. But whether that future would embrace their love, or crush it beneath the weight of prejudice and fear, remained to be seen. The rhythmic pulse of Ayla's bioluminescence painted the ice cavern in soothing hues of turquoise and emerald. Owen sat across from her, his modified datapad translating her complex light language into halting phrases, symbiosis. Kryll. Keelam v1. He was learning, slowly but surely, to understand not just her words, but the subtle shifts in color that conveyed her emotions. The violet that pulsed through her crystalline form, once a mystery, now resonated with a familiar warmth. He recognized it as a reflection of his own longing, a longing not just for understanding, but for connection. He thought of Lena, his wife, her face a faded photograph in his memory. The vibrant greens of Earth, the crashing waves of the ocean, all lost to humanity's greed. Ayla, in her alien beauty, represented a new beginning, a chance to build a future free from the mistakes of the past. But could he reconcile his duty to his people with the burgeoning feelings he had for this being from another world? Ayla's light flickered, a ripple of amber interrupting the calming greens. Humans, fear, destroy. She knew of the Council's plans, the impending mining operation that threatened the delicate balance of Keelam's ecosystem. He'd pleaded with them, argued against their reckless decision, but fear had blinded them. He reached out, his gloved hand hovering inches from her crystalline surface. He hesitated, unsure if his touch would be welcomed, or even safe. Their biologies were so different, their forms separated by a chasm of evolutionary divergence. But Ayla, sensing his hesitation, extended a delicate, crystalline appendage, meeting his hand. The contact wasn't cold, as he'd expected, but surprisingly warm, sending a shiver down his spine. He felt a connection, a flow of energy, not the sharp, electric pulses of Kryll communication, but something softer, something intimate. Their understanding deepened in the quiet solitude of the cavern. He shared stories of Earth, of its lost beauty, of his grief for Lena. Ayla, in turn, revealed the Kryll's deep connection to Keelam, their symbiotic relationship with the planet's icy heart. He tried to explain human concepts of love, of romance, but Ayla's colors pulsed in confusion. Kryll intimacy, she explained, was a merging of consciousness, a shared experience far beyond his comprehension. He realized patience was key. The Human Council, driven by desperation, authorized the mining operation, ignoring his warnings. Ayla's light fled a frantic red. Frostworm, anger, destroy. The Kryll Guardian, she explained, would see this as an act of aggression, an unforgivable violation. He knew what he had to do. He would use their connection, their shared understanding, to broker a truce. He returned to the settlement, convincing the Council to allow Ayla to speak, to present the Kryll perspective. Hope flickered, a fragile ember in the gathering darkness. But as Ayla stood before the Council, her light shimmering with a plea for understanding, disaster struck. A splinter faction of Kryll, mistrustful of humans and enraged by Ayla's perceived betrayal, launched a preemptive attack. The Council chamber erupted in chaos. He saw Ayla, her light blazing, shielding a group of terrified human children from the Kryll energy blasts, She was risking her life for his people, a testament to her faith in him, in their shared dream. He made his choice. He activated the emergency beacon, summoning help from a nearby human outpost, a signal that would forever sever his ties to Earth, to the dream of returning home. Keelam was his home now. Ayla was his family. Reinforcements arrived, repelling the rogue Kryll. The frostworm, drawn by the chaos, descended from the glacier, its colossal form casting a long shadow over the settlement. But Ayla, unwavering, continued her plea, her light reaching out to the frostworm, explaining Owen's actions, his commitment to peace. The frostworm, sensing Ayla's unwavering trust, surprisingly withdrew. The crisis was averted, but the peace was fragile, their love a precarious bridge spanning a chasm of suspicion and fear. He stood beside Ayla, their hands intertwined, a small island of calm in a sea of uncertainty. Their love story, a whisper of hope in the frozen wasteland, had just begun. But whether it would blossom into a symbol of interspecies understanding, or be crushed beneath the weight of fear and prejudice, remained to be seen. The rhythmic hum of the geothermal generators was the only sound that broke the tense silence in the human settlement. The frostworm's attack had been repelled, but the fear remained, a thick fog of unease that clung to every corridor, every dwelling. Owen felt the weight of it in his chest, a crushing pressure compounded by the Council's icy glares. They'd agreed to his plan, allowed Ayla to speak, and look what it had wrought, another Kryll attack, another near catastrophe. They saw him as a traitor, a collaborator with the enemy. He saw himself as a bridge, a fragile link between two worlds teetering on the brink of war. He found Ayla in their sanctuary, the ice cavern bathed in the soft glow of her bioluminescence. Her colors were muted, a swirling mix of blues and grays, tinged with the violet he now understood as sadness. He sat beside her, the chill of the ice seeping through his protective suit, a stark contrast to the warmth he felt radiating from her. He reached out, his gloved hand finding hers. The contact sent a familiar tingle through him, a reassurance in the midst of the chaos. "I'm sorry," he whispered, the words inadequate, hollow against the weight of the near disaster. Ayla's colors shifted, a pulse of emerald flickering through the gray. "Not your fault," the translator stammered. She understood the complexities of human emotions, the fear that drove them to irrational acts. She'd risked her life, not just for the children she'd shielded, but for him, for their shared dream of coexistence. He saw the flicker of doubt in her luminescence, the fear of being ostracized by her own people. He'd seen the glares from the other Kryll, the whispers of traitor echoing in the aftermath of the attack. She was walking a tightrope, balancing her loyalty to her people with her belief in him. He shared a memory with her, a flickering image of Lena, his late wife, her laughter echoing across a sun-drenched beach on Earth. "I lost her," he confessed, his voice thick with unshed tears. "Because we didn't listen, because we were too afraid." Ayla's light softened, a wave of violet washing over her. He saw understanding, empathy, in her luminescence. A connection that transcended the vast gulf between their species. He explained his hope, his dream of building a life on Keelam, a future where their two species could not just coexist, but thrive. A future Lena would have been proud of. Ayla, her light intensifying, revealed her own personal goal. It wasn't just about protecting her people, but about proving that Kryll and humans could be allies, equals. She believed in him, in the possibility of peace, and that belief, fragile as it was, gave him strength. The next few days were a blur of tense negotiations, fragile truces, and the constant threat of another attack. The rogue Kryll faction, emboldened by their near success, were planning another assault, this time targeting the human settlement's life support systems. Ayla, despite the risks, volunteered to infiltrate their ranks, to try and reason with them, to prevent a catastrophe. It was a suicide mission. He argued against it, his fear for her overriding all other concerns. But she was resolute. This was her chance, she explained, to prove her loyalty to her people, to show them that peace was possible. He knew he couldn't stop her. He could only offer his support, his love, a quiet refuge in the gathering storm. As Ayla prepared to leave, she turned to him, her light pulsing a soft, vibrant violet. She extended a crystalline appendage, tracing the contours of his face. The touch was surprisingly warm, sending a shiver down his spine. It was a farewell, a promise, a declaration of a love that defied definition, a love born in the icy heart of an alien world. He watched her go, his heart a knot of fear and admiration. He had a choice: stay and defend the settlement, or follow her, protect her. He thought of Earth, of the beacon he still carried, the one chance he had to return to a possibly revitalized world, a world without Lena. Then he looked at the empty space where Ayla had stood, and he knew. He activated the emergency beacon, not to summon help, but to destroy it. He was severing his last tie to Earth. Keelam was his home now. Ayla was his future. The ensuing battle was a chaotic maelstrom of energy blasts and shattering ice. The rogue Kryll attacked with a ferocity born of desperation, their energy weapons tearing through the settlement's defenses. He fought alongside the human soldiers, defending his new home, his fear for Ayla fueling his every move. He saw her in the midst of the battle, her light blazing, her crystalline form deflecting energy blasts, her voice, translated by his datapad, ringing out above the din, pleading with her people to stop, to listen. The Frostworm, drawn by the escalating conflict, descended from the glacier, its immense form casting a shadow of doom over the battlefield. But this time, it didn't attack. It hovered, observing, listening to Ayla's impassioned pleas. The rogue Kryll, seeing their guardian's hesitation, began to waver. Ayla's message, her unwavering belief in the possibility of peace, began to resonate. The fighting subsided, replaced by an uneasy silence. In the aftermath, the peace was fragile, bought at a high price. The rogue Kryll faction was subdued, but the suspicion remained. The Human Council, while grateful for Ayla's intervention, viewed his relationship with her with a mixture of awe and distrust. They were heroes, but also outcasts, a testament to the enduring power of fear and prejudice. He stood beside Ayla, hand in hand, two solitary figures silhouetted against the backdrop of a setting sun, their love a fragile beacon in the frozen wasteland. Their future was uncertain, their path forward strewn with obstacles, but they had each other. Their love, a whisper of hope in the vast emptiness of space, was a testament to the power of connection, a bridge between worlds, a promise of a future where understanding, not force, might guide the destinies of two vastly different species. Whether that future would embrace their love, or crush it beneath the weight of fear and prejudice, remained to be seen. The tremor started subtly, a low rumble that vibrated through the ice cavern, growing in intensity until the crystalline formations around Owen and Ayla sang a dissonant chorus. Ayla's luminescence, normally a calming wash of turquoise and emerald, pulsed a frantic red. Attack, humans, coming, her light stammered through the translator. He knew it was the rogue Kryll faction, the ones who distrusted any attempt at peace. They had misconstrued the Council's agreement to negotiations as a sign of weakness, a prelude to an all-out assault. "We have to warn them," Owen said, his voice tight with urgency. Ayla's light flickered, a mix of fear and resolve. Too late, they will not believe. She knew the Human Council saw her as a threat, a symbol of the alien menace that had nearly destroyed their settlement. But her color shifted, a surge of violet flooding her crystalline form. "I will go." He understood. She would infiltrate the rogue Kryll, try to reason with them, prevent a catastrophe. It was a suicide mission, a desperate gamble, but he knew he couldn't stop her. Her people needed her. He needed her. As Ayla prepared to leave, she turned to him, her light pulsing a soft, luminous violet. She reached out, her crystalline hand hovering inches from his cheek. He held his breath, his heart pounding. Would her touch burn, freeze, or simply pass through him? He'd analyzed her biology, understood the complex energy fields that animated her crystalline form, but nothing could have prepared him for the reality of her touch. It was warm, surprisingly so, like a gentle caress, sending a wave of heat through his chilled body. It was a farewell, a promise, a declaration of a love that defied definition, born in the icy heart of an alien world. He watched her disappear into the labyrinthine tunnels of the glacier, his heart a knot of fear and admiration. He had a choice: stay and warn the settlement, or follow her, protect her. He thought of Earth, of the beacon he still carried, the one chance he had to return to a possibly revitalized world, a world without Lena. Then he looked at the empty space where Ayla had stood, the echoing silence of the cavern, and he knew. He activated the emergency beacon, not to summon help, but to destroy it, severing his last tie to Earth. Keelam was his home now. Ayla was his future. The battle erupted with brutal swiftness. The rogue Kryll, their energy weapons blazing, tore through the settlement's defenses. Owen fought alongside the human soldiers, defending his new home, his fear for Ayla a burning ember in his chest. He saw her in the thick of the fight, her light blazing, deflecting energy blasts, her voice, translated by his datapad, echoing above the din, pleading with her people to stop, to listen. The Frostworm, drawn by the escalating conflict, descended from the glacier, its shadow falling over the battlefield like a shroud. But this time, it didn't attack. It hovered, observing, listening as Ayla's impassioned pleas reached out to the Kryll, to the Frostworm itself. The rogue Kryll, seeing their guardian's hesitation, wavered. Ayla's unwavering belief in the possibility of peace began to resonate. The fighting subsided, replaced by an uneasy silence. In the aftermath of the battle, the peace was fragile, a delicate seedling in the ravaged landscape. The rogue Kryll, subdued but not convinced, retreated into the glacier. The human council, shaken but grateful, looked at Owen with a mixture of awe and distrust. He and Ayla were heroes, but also outcasts, their love a testament to the enduring power of fear and prejudice, both human and Kryll. They stood side by side, her hand in his, two solitary figures silhouetted against the backdrop of a blood-red sunset. Their future was uncertain, their path forward fraught with peril, but they had each other. Their love, a whisper of hope in the vast emptiness of space, was a bridge between worlds, a promise of a future where understanding, not force, might guide the destinies of two vastly different species. Whether that future would embrace their love, or crush it beneath the weight of fear and suspicion, remained to be seen. The ice cavern echoed with the Frostworm's distant roar, a low, guttural sound that vibrated through Owen's bones. Ayla's luminescence pulsed a nervous amber, reflecting the tension crackling in the air. The rogue Kryll faction, distrustful of the tentative peace, had launched a surprise attack on a remote human outpost. The council, their fear reignited, were on the verge of retaliating, throwing the fragile truce into the glacial abyss. "They don't understand," Ayla's light whispered through the translator, her colors shifting to a troubled violet. "They see only threat, not hope." Owen knew she was right. He'd spent weeks trying to bridge the gap between humans and Kryll, painstakingly translating Ayla's language, explaining her people's deep connection to Keelam, their reverence for the Frostworm. But fear, like a virus, had infected the human council, blinding them to any possibility of peaceful coexistence. He thought of Lena, his late wife, her face a faded photograph in his memory. He'd lost her to Earth's dying breath, a victim of humanity's short-sightedness. He wouldn't let the same tragedy unfold on Keelam. Ayla, in her alien beauty, represented a new beginning, a chance to build a future free from the mistakes of the past. But could he save both his people and the woman he was growing to love? Ayla, sensing his inner turmoil, reached out, her crystalline hand hovering inches from his cheek. He held his breath, every cell in his body aware of her proximity. He knew so little about her physiology, feared his touch might harm her, disrupt the delicate energy field that animated her form. But Ayla, as if reading his thoughts, gently touched his face. The contact was warm, sending a wave of heat through his chilled skin. It wasn't the sharp, electric pulse of Kryll communication, but something softer, something intimate. A shiver ran down his spine, a mixture of wonder and a strange, burgeoning desire. He felt a connection, a silent understanding that transcended the vast gulf separating their species. "I believe you," her light whispered, the translated words a balm to his troubled heart. Kryll intimacy, she'd explained, was a merging of consciousness, a shared experience beyond human comprehension. He'd tried to explain human concepts of love, of romance, but the nuances were lost in translation. He was learning patience, learning to appreciate the subtle shifts in her luminescence that spoke volumes more than any words. He learned of her aspirations, her desire not just to protect her people, but to forge an alliance with humans, to prove they could be equals. It was a risky ambition, a path fraught with danger. The Kryll, like humans, were divided. Many saw him, and Ayla's connection to him, as a betrayal. The Council, fueled by the rogue Kryll attack, prepared for war. Owen knew it would be a disaster. The Frostworm, protector of Keelam, would never allow the destruction of its Kryll children. Ayla, sensing his desperation, made a choice that took his breath away. She would venture into the Frostworm's lair, plead for peace, explain Owen's efforts, his commitment to coexistence. It was a perilous undertaking, a gamble that could cost her life. The Frostworm, in its rage, might see her as a traitor. He tried to dissuade her, his fear for her safety overriding all other concerns. But she was resolute. This was her chance, she explained, to prove her loyalty to her people, to demonstrate the possibility of peace. As she prepared to leave, she turned to him, her light pulsing a soft, vibrant violet. She touched his face again, this time lingering, the warmth of her touch a stark contrast to the icy fear gripping his heart. It was a farewell, a promise, a silent declaration of a love that defied definition. He watched her disappear into the glacial tunnels, his heart a knot of fear and hope. He had a choice: remain with the humans, warn them of the impending disaster, or follow Ayla, protect her. He looked at the emergency beacon he still carried, the single link to a possibly revitalized Earth, a world without Lena. Then he looked at the empty space where Ayla had stood, and he knew. He crushed the beacon in his hand, severing his last tie to his past. Keelam was his home now. Ayla was his future. He found her deep within the Frostworm's lair, a vast cavern carved into the heart of the glacier. She stood before the colossal Kryll Guardian, her light blazing, her voice echoing through the cavern, her plea for peace resonating with the Frostworm's own deep sorrow. The rogue Kryll, witnessing their guardian's unexpected compassion, lowered their weapons. The war was averted, not by force, but by understanding, by Ayla's unwavering belief in the possibility of peace, and by Owen's love for her, a love that had given her the strength to face the impossible. In the aftermath, the peace was tentative, fraught with suspicion. The rogue Kryll retreated, but their distrust lingered. The Human Council, while grateful for the reprieve, eyed Owen and Ayla with a mixture of awe and apprehension. They were heroes, but also outcasts, their love a testament to the enduring power of prejudice and fear. They stood hand in hand, silhouetted against the backdrop of a nascent aurora, their love a fragile beacon in a world still shrouded in doubt. Their future was uncertain, a path paved with challenges, but they had each other. And in their shared love, a whisper of hope resonated in the vast emptiness of space, a promise of a future where understanding, not force, might guide the destinies of two vastly different species. Whether that future would embrace their love, or crush it beneath the weight of fear and intolerance, remained to be seen. The geothermal vents hummed a low, comforting song against the ever-present chill of Keelam. Owen sat beside Ayla in their sanctuary, the ice cavern bathed in the soft glow of her bioluminescence. He traced the contours of her crystalline hand with his gloved finger, marveling at the warmth that radiated from her. He'd feared his touch might harm her, but the reality was a gentle heat, a comforting presence against the icy fear that gripped his heart. He thought of Lena, his late wife, her face a faded memory etched against the vibrant green of a lost Earth. Ayla, in her alien beauty, was a new beginning, a fragile hope in the frozen wasteland. Council, demands, explanation. Ayla's light flickered, the translated words tinged with anxiety. The rogue Kryll attack on the outpost had reignited human fears, fueling the Council's distrust. They saw Ayla's offer of peace as a deceptive ploy, a prelude to a larger assault. They won't listen, Owen sighed, the weight of their prejudice settling on his shoulders. He'd presented Ayla's warnings, explained the Kryll's reverence for the Frostworm, their deep connection to Keelam's ecosystem, but fear had deafened them. Ayla's color shifted, a ripple of violet running through her crystalline form. I will speak to them again. He saw the fear in her luminescence, the knowledge that this act could be perceived as a betrayal by her own people, the ones who saw her connection with him as a weakness. He placed his hand over hers, the warmth, the silent reassurance. "Let me go with you," he pleaded. Ayla hesitated. "Dangerous, they do not trust you." "I know," he admitted, "but I won't let you face them alone." He knew the risk, the possibility of being branded a traitor by his own people, but he couldn't abandon her. The council chamber was a cauldron of fear and suspicion. Ayla's light pulsed a nervous amber as she addressed them, her voice translated by Owen's datapad. "We offer peace, coexistence. Frostworm protects all." The council members scoffed, their faces hardened by distrust. "Lies," one of them shouted, "tricks to lull us into complacency." Before Owen could respond, the ground trembled. The walls shook. Ayla's light fled a frantic red. Attack, not us, others. It was the rogue KRYLL faction, launching a preemptive strike, misinterpreting the council's hostility as a declaration of war. Chaos erupted. Energy blasts ripped through the chamber, the air thick with the smell of ozone. Ayla's light blazed, shielding a group of terrified council members from the attack. She was risking her life for the very people who distrusted her, her belief in peace stronger than their fear. Owen saw his choice. He grabbed a fallen energy weapon, defending Ayla, his heart pounding with a mixture of fear and a fierce, protective love. The frostworm's roar echoed through the settlement, a deep, guttural sound that sent shivers down their spines. The rogue KRYLL, seeing the frostworm's arrival, hesitated. Ayla, seizing the opportunity, projected her voice, her light reaching out to the colossal KRYLL guardian, explaining the situation, pleading for restraint. The frostworm, sensing her sincerity, her unwavering belief in the possibility of peace, withdrew its attack. The silence that followed was deafening. The rogue KRYLL retreated, their distrust unresolved. The human council, shaken and humbled, looked at Ayla and Owen with a mixture of awe and suspicion. They were heroes, but also outcasts, their love a testament to the enduring power of prejudice and fear. Owen stood beside Ayla, their hands intertwined, a small island of calm in the turbulent sea of interspecies relations. Their future was uncertain, a path fraught with peril, but they had each other. Their love, a whisper of hope in the vast emptiness of space, was a bridge between worlds, a promise that understanding, not force, might one day guide the destinies of two vastly different species. Whether that day would ever come remained to be seen.